I'm going to pull back the curtain and share something that I don't typically share a lot on the podcast, which is how long it took us to learn how to run a profitable wedding business. It's actually kind of scary because it took 10 years of doing it all wrong, banging our heads against a wall and feeling like we were never going to get out of this cycle of hustle and overwhelm before we finally figured it out. We were working our butts off and doing everything right, but we weren't getting anywhere in our business. I was working 80 hours a week. I feel like I never slept. When I was hanging out with my kids, I was thinking about work. I was overworked and underpaid and severely burnt out. The number of times I considered just throwing in the towel and burning the whole thing down is actually kind of scary until I learned this one thing that completely flipped the script on the way we do business. You might be thinking, okay, Brandee, sure, it was just one thing that completely transformed your business. And I get it. I'm a skeptic too, but it genuinely was this one shift in our business that completely transformed everything and allowed me to step back from the day to day of operations in our business. And now I am fully disengaged from the day to day. I don't personally take weddings anymore in our business. And yes, I still take a full time salary. How did we do that? It's one simple mindset shift, which was that I had to stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like a CEO. So, what does that actually mean? Because you hear me talk about that a lot. Here's the thing: when we first start our wedding business, we get into it because we love our craft, right? Like, we're really probably really, really good at it. And so you start just doing it. You start taking on sales, new clients. You're kind of like flying the plane as you're building it, right? That's really the entrepreneurial way. That's how we get into business. The problem is too many of us stay stuck there. And what that means is that you're constantly doing all the things. You're answering emails, you're doing the sales, you're hiring employees, you're doing payroll, you're doing the editing, you're doing the timelines, like you're doing it all. And so you have no margin to focus on the growth and scale of your business. You're literally just kind of like putting bubble gum in the holes of your boat as you go, praying that it all stays together. And I want to encourage you because listen to me when I tell you that we did this for 10 years. 10 years, you guys. And it's crazy to me to think back on. And so often I tell my students, like, do not follow my timeline because I can save you so much time by giving you the tools that I didn't learn soon enough in my business. Once I started to understand why my business needed me to think like a CEO, that's when everything started to turn. And for us, it meant that I had to take my entire business, break it all the way down to the studs, and rebuild it. And that was scary. I'm not going to lie. When I have wedding pros come into our programs, I start telling them, like, okay, we're going to break this apart. We're going to break this apart so that we can rebuild it. They're like, girl, this feels so foreign. And I'm like, I totally get that. You're right. It does feel foreign. That's the point. We don't want to continue running your business the way that you've been running it because it's not sustainable, right? We have to get you as the CEO margin in your weeks so that you can start to focus on growth, scalability, hiring a team, mentoring, really looking at your business from the top down so that you can see where the holes are and you can start to work on fixes versus just sticking that bubble gum there and moving on to the next problem, right? So this was completely 100% the shift I needed. And it's actually really fun to kind of think back on those years because when I first learned what I was doing wrong and that it affected so much of my business, and I realized like I not only have to make changes for myself, but I have to make changes in staffing, I have to make changes in pricing, I have to make changes in the way that we are marketing ourselves. And the interesting thing about that is that we were so successful from the outside looking in, right? But on the inside, I knew that I had to build something that was actually going to stand on a firm foundation versus this wiggly batch of sticks that I had created as we just scaled. So you've heard this a million times, but what I want you to start doing is start working on your business and not in your business. But what does that actually mean? Let me break it down for you. So the very first thing that I want you to think about is systems are always going to be better than hustle. And I know you may be like, no, Brandee, I can hustle the hardest, right? And that might be true for a little bit of time. Listen, I believe that there is a hustle stage of your business. All of these educators who are out there saying, oh, only work 2 hours a day or make sure you clock out right at 5 are full of it because all of us had a hustle stage of our business. So I definitely think there is a time to hustle in your business, but I also think You have to understand when it's time for you to stop thinking like an employee. What that means is that right now you are probably doing all the client emails, all the sales, all the HR, all the payroll, all the things, right? And what we need to do is we need to have you step out of some of those things and start systematizing them. So we need things to either be automated, we need them to be delegated, or we need to stop doing them altogether. There's actually very few things that need to live on your plate. And what you'll find, what I definitely found, and I still say to this day to my staff all the time, is I am the bottleneck of my business. 9 times out of 10, if there is a process or a procedure or a decision that's taking way too long to complete, it's usually because I am somehow involved in it. And while I'm doing 100 things every day, the challenge is I am the bottleneck because I'm not getting back to that thing that has to happen. And that's the problem. What we want to do is we want to remove you from as many of these processes as possible so that your killer, amazing, baddie team and systems and automations can do their thing while you focus on what's more important in your business, which is growth and scaling. The very minute that I started automating and delegating tasks was exactly when everything started to change in my business. Because when we were in that 10 years of failure and bottleneck and chaos, I was involved in every single solitary piece of our business, every single one. But then once I started removing myself from those and automating and delegating and really just overseeing things instead of being part of every process, we were able to actually start scaling. And it is the coolest thing that you will see happen. It's almost like this unlock and your shoulders can lower just a little bit. And you're like, this is what freedom feels like. Systems create freedom. Freedom creates growth. If you have no margin in your days, I promise you that you are the reason that your business is not growing. Number two is to know your numbers, shocker, but to actually care about them. So you hear me talk about a lot that you need to know your numbers. You need to know your numbers. But where your feet hit the pavement, where it really matters is that you have to actually care about them. And what that means is that you can get all the reports in the world. You can have a great bookkeeper who sends you your P&L, who sends you your budget versus actual, who's telling you what your cash flow is like. But unless you understand it and you care about it, it's never going to move the needle in your business. This was huge for me. It's so funny now that I teach on profitability because one of the biggest fights my husband and I have ever gotten into in our marriage and in our business was because he hired a bookkeeper for our business and didn't tell me. And the reason he didn't tell me was because he knew I would say, no, that's too expensive. And ultimately, he was right. And I hate to admit that, but he was right because we were paying a small amount in comparison to the hours and hours and hours that I would spend in QuickBooks trying to put data entry and then it would be wrong anyway and it wouldn't make any sense. And I would just like bang my head against a wall. In reality, we were able to pay someone to get all of this data input for us and put it all in the right spots and give us some highlights. And then I could spend 30 minutes to an hour reviewing all of that information and really understanding how it affects our business. Things like our break even number. How much does it actually take us to run our business? And are we making that amount every month? Things like being able to forecast out 12 to 15 months in advance and see if we are ahead of pace or behind pace to make sure that we are always going to be bringing in enough money to cover all of our break even and our growth. Also, things like conversion rate, like understanding exactly what our conversion rate is, how many leads come in, how many of those book a consult, how many of those are actually converting into bookings. All of this is information that you not just have to know, but you actually have to care about and understand so that you can use that data to actually move your business forward. If you are listening to this and you're like, I have a bookkeeper, they send me reports every month. I don't actually read them because I don't know what they are. I would love to chat with you. I want to help you understand your numbers and how to care about them. And this is so, so important. I know that numbers are not the sexy part of business, but they are the lifeblood of your business. Once I understood our numbers, I was able to see what was working, what wasn't, and what we needed to do specifically to actually become profitable. If you are ready to stop spinning your wheels and actually start making money, this is where you start. Hey there, CEO. If you're loving this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you never miss a video on how to grow and scale your profitable wedding business. Number three is to raise your prices significantly. You guys, this is such a big one. This is why I love working on pricing strategy with our students inside of Wedding Pro CEO, because so often we are vastly underpricing ourselves as wedding pros. The thing is, you don't actually know that you're underpricing yourself. You just kind of feel like it. And there's this adage out there, right? That's like, charge what you're worth. Well, what the heck does that even mean? Especially in the beginning, you're like, well, what am I worth? Right. And even as you start to grow, it's like, well, what am I worth exactly? So charging what you're worth is a trash statement, and I wish it would go away. What I actually want you to do is charge what makes you a profitable wedding business. Okay. And what that means is that you have to understand, first of all, what goes into your services, how many hours are spent on it, what your overhead costs are, what your hard fixed costs are. We have to understand all of that so that we can know, okay, well, how much am I actually making off of this service when I sell it? This is such a massive piece of the puzzle, because once you start to understand what it actually costs you to service your clients, and then you start to see, like, I am not making any money, or this is why there's actually no money left over at the end of the year. Hello, spoiler alert, it's always because you're undercharging. This is when you become super confident in your pricing. The reason that you are raising your pricing and not seeing sales is because you're like, I raised my prices, but I'm not sure if it's too much. I'm not sure if I'm worth it. It's a gut feeling. You're just going with your gut. No, guys, we have to go back to the data. If you're doing your pricing and you look at it and you see exactly what you need to make off of each of your services to actually run a profitable, sustainable business, I promise you that you will start to sell from a more confident place, and you will immediately start to be like, yeah, take it or leave it. Like, this is my pricing. And that confidence is going to help you to close more sales, because that's what our couples want. They want to understand that, yeah, this is what I'm worth. So let's go for it. Right. So that's what I want you to really think about, is when we raise our prices, it's all based in data. It's not just a whim, a gut feeling, and double your prices. Not at all. We want to take it back to the data. We want to understand how much we make from each of our services, and we want to price accordingly. And then we want to sell the heck out of it. Little side story, since we're pulling back the curtain, I'll be super transparent with you about how I learned this the hard way. So I actually was charging $4,000 for our full planning service, which it just baffles me that we did that, but we did that for years. Okay. So, and I thought it was like so much money. I was like, $4,000, that is amazing. Like, look how much money we're making. Except there was never enough money at the end of the month to actually make payroll. Right. And so I had charged a client $4,000, and they were a really high end client. Okay. And so I charged them $4,000. They gave me a full price check right away. Like, they paid in full. They were like, great, love it, let's sign. And I had come recommended by the venue. So they were like, well, if you're recommended by the venue and you're only $4,000, like, where do we sign? Right. So red flag number one, they were like, here you go. Here's all the money. From there, you guys, we worked our butts off. We had no idea how to set boundaries. We were overwhelmed by this wedding, to say the least. We were working around the clock. We had lost money at this point significantly. And honestly, it was not a good fit on either side. Like, we weren't a great fit for this client. Honestly, this client was definitely not a good fit for us. And so we actually mutually parted ways, which was such a blessing, really. And because there was no hard feelings on either side, like, we both decided this is not a good client fit. And so we parted ways. They went with another planner. It was fine, all good. Right. However, it was kind of a blow, right? When you have to part ways with a client, it's like, gosh, this sucks. Like, what did we do wrong here? Everything about that wedding felt hard. And so I actually went to a mentor in our industry, Susan Sutherland. She is part of Wedding Pro CEO. She's been on the podcast several times. She's a speaker at my summit. She was actually one of my first mentors. And I went to her and I said, can you help me understand how to price these big weddings? Because I feel lost. I don't know what happened with this client, and I don't ever want it to happen again. And she was so gracious, because she was like, I would love to actually teach you this, because too often wedding planners, or wedding pros in general, get into the industry and they don't learn how to do pricing. And so they just like make up a number, which is what I did, and it feels fine, but they don't realize how much they're losing. And so those of us that have been in the industry a long time and know what we should be charging don't get those bookings because, these new people come up and people book them instead, right? And so she was like, I would love to show you how to price. So she showed me exactly how to understand my pricing model and what I should be charging. And you guys, this was crazy, okay? Because I swear this is how it happened. The very next week, we got another lead, this time from the knot. So a colder lead that had reached out to us for this massive wedding. I mean, massive private estate. They lived on an airstrip, a private airstrip. And so we got this lead and it was insane. Honestly, had I not had that bad experience and then gone to Susan to figure it out, I would have underpriced this wedding too. And this would have been tragic because it was out of the area. It was so much work. We had our whole team on site for over a week. It was crazy how big this wedding was. And so because I understood how to price it, I sent her a proposal with our price, which was many times our price of our full service package typically, right? Many, many times. And she signed it immediately. Like she was like, I love you guys. Everything about this looks great. And she signed it and paid our retainer. And I was like, there is no way I could ever charge this. Now I know. And the reason I was able to do that is because I was confident in my pricing. I knew how to price at this point. I knew what I was doing. Had I gone into that proposal with a four or even $6,000 quote, she would have been like, this girl's a joke. Like, there's no way she's going to be able to pull off our wedding. But because I went into it and I listed out, like, this is what we would be doing. This is how much that cost. She was very, very confident that we knew what we were doing, and we did. And from that point forward, we've never gone back on our pricing. Now I know how to price. So the reason I tell you this story is one, so you can know if you're going through something similar, like I have been there. And two, I really want you to find someone. I'd love for you to come into Wedding Pro CEO because this is what we do literally on the daily with our students, but find someone that can help you with your pricing. If it's not us, find a coach, find a mentor that can help you with your pricing because this is going to be such an unlock for scaling the revenue in your business and actually charging what you need to be profitable in your business. Number four is to invest in the right team. And notice that I use the word invest and not just get the right team, hire the right team. I specifically am using the word invest because too often we think about hiring team members as an expense of our business, but in reality, they are one of the best investments that we can make in growing and scaling our business. This took me way too long to learn. You guys, I'm telling you, this was probably the one thing that I held on to for the longest time because hiring a team, you look at the amount of money that's going to go out and you're like, I can't afford that. I can't afford that. But in reality, you can't afford not to do it. And I so often work with solopreneurs that come into the program and they're like, I don't even know how to build a team. I don't even know where to start. I'm so afraid to do this. I'm so afraid to do it the wrong way. And I'm like, oh my goodness, let me show you the ways. I love, especially teaching photographers and DJs how to build out associate teams. It's like one of my favorite things to do because in those realms, so often they want to stay a solopreneur, but you don't realize that your revenue is capped at the amount of time you're willing to work if you're a solopreneur. And so this building a team, investing in your team is going to be the way that you're actually going to scale. The difference is that what we don't want to do is just hire a bunch of people to do tasks for us. That's not actually helpful. And most of the time it ends up costing you more time because you have to find things for them to do all of the time. What we want to do instead is we want to create really strategic positions within our team, and we want to help them to understand what their role is in the business, what they specifically will be doing. And we want to let them run with that role, right? Like we want to just let them go and be amazing at what they do. At the beginning of this episode, you heard me say that I broke my entire business down to the studs and rebuilt it. And this is one of those ways that I did that. In the beginning, we had a team of contractors, like 9 to 11 contractors. And this was several years into our business. It was chaos. And when I did that rebuilding, we actually went to all of our contractors and said, hey, we're going to be making everyone employees. We're going to be making full-time and part-time roles. Is this something that you're interested in? And some of them were like, absolutely. I would love to take on more. I would love to be part-time. And some of them were like, I really don't. Like, I like kind of just doing this on the side a few times a year. But if that doesn't work anymore, like, we're totally fine with that too. And the great part about this is that what I was doing is instead of having all of these people out here that sort of kind of knew our procedures and knew our mission and knew our values, they sort of kind of knew them. But now what I was doing is I was creating this core team who worked every single weekend with my company. They were exclusive to my company. They worked during the week with our company. They didn't have other jobs. And I was able to really pour into them and give each of them a way to grow the company. So now, instead of me being the only one thinking about our growth, I was able to bring on an operations person, and their job was to make sure that all of our operations ran smoothly, our scheduling, our assisting, all of our onboarding, and things like that. Like that was that person's role. I was able to bring on a marketing person whose complete focus was to get us published, to post on Instagram, post on Facebook, create blogs, create networking opportunities. I was able to bring on a sales manager, somebody who could really focus on sales, where they would be driving revenue versus me just kind of like answering leads as I had time, right? And then I was able to bring on a company culture, a team culture person who was really responsible for training and making sure that we were all doing things the same way and that they were really leveling up our team. You guys, I don't think there's been anything in my business that I've done that has been a bigger game changer than investing in that core team instead of having such a large just team of contractors that were kind of just like doing a wedding here and doing a wedding there. So if this feels like you and you're like, I really want to know more about this because that is actually how I'm running my business too. I would love to invite you to book a call with our team so we can chat more about this and see if one of our programs would be a great fit to help you scale up that strategic team. I'm telling you, if you're looking for 2025 to be the year that you just go all out and you were like, I'm in, let's go, time to double my revenue, I would love to see you book a call with our team so that we can really help you to put some fuel on your fire. You can head over to brandeegar.com/apply, and there's a call booking link right there. Pick a time that works for you, and let's chat with you about how we can grow and scale your business. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video from us on how to grow and scale your profitable business. And hey, YouTube thinks you'll like this video next, so click that button, and I'll see you over there.